What's up, everybody? Let's see here. Welcome. If you're just joining, we are going live for lunch, y'all. If you are live with me, if you're watching the recording, it might be breakfast or dinner for you. I'm not sure. But I'm somewhat of a rookie, I'll be really honest, to doing these lives, but I really am enjoying them. So you can help me out because if my sound is funky, please type in the chat. Let me know you cannot hear me. And if you can hear me nice and clear, go ahead and type in the chat. Let me know that you can hear me. But if you're watching the recording, welcome. We'll get started in just a minute or two. I always like to see where folks are from. We're going live on a couple of places. If you're on Instagram, type in the chat. Let me know so I can shout you out. I'm kind of jumping in between on the back end studio here. If you're on YouTube, you could also type where you're from. But I see real quick on Instagram. I think, oh, hey, Mary. Oh my gosh, long time no see. Hello. Welcome. Cool. This is fun. All right, y'all. In about 30 seconds, I'm going to get going, but I want to talk today about the power of a self retreat. And specifically, as we're going live, we are on July 1st, 2024. And this is the first day of the second half of the year. And I'm coming off of the heels of having just done a 2-day virtual retreat for my members and private clients. So I do a mid-year retreat for everybody who's in my coaching community and my private clients. And then I do a top of the year in-person retreat here in Los Angeles or Pasadena, California. But I wanted to just give you a couple of reflections that have come through from this really powerful 2 days that we spent together. So I'm going to break down what is a self retreat, why do we do the mid year, and then the critical questions you need to be asking yourself halfway through this year. So again, if you're on the chat and you'd like to go ahead and say hi, join me. But if you're new to this, hello, my name is Camille Rose. I'm a peak performance mindset coach for entrepreneurs, high achievers, small to medium sized business owners, CEOs of organizations. Essentially, I work with leaders like you. So if you're watching this, you're likely someone who has a lot of aspirations. Maybe you're already very successful. Maybe you're looking to start your own business for the first time ever. But wherever you're at, you are someone who believes in the power of personal development, working on yourself, working on your leadership skills to better the business, to better the organization, to live your version of the ultimate life. And so essentially, that's the company here. So I created this company in 2016. I've been coaching for about a decade now. And I focus primarily on your mindset. That's my specialty. Is I want to help you as a leader master your mindset because I really believe that it starts there. If you can get to the core of your beliefs, the conditioning, the sort of repeated habits, emotions, thought patterns, perspectives in your head, the stories you tell yourself, about the world, about money, about business, when you start to feel very much in integrity with those stories. And what I mean by that is you'll know when your default stories, I'll explain what that means in a second, but when your default stories, meaning the story you tell yourself when you're triggered by stress, when you're triggered by frustration, when something shocks you, and the automatic story that comes up in your head about that situation, about yourself, about the person, is something that you like, you appreciate. You're like, hey, I'm glad that I'm feeling confident about this. I'm glad I'm feeling at peace with this. That is you in integrity now. Like, this is you operating from your version of the ultimate mindset, the ultimate life. But for many of us, myself included, there's a lot of situations in our life and in our business where we get triggered by something and the default story that comes up, we don't like. Oh my gosh, I don't think I'm good enough. Oh my gosh, I think they hate me. Oh my goodness, they're disrespecting me. Oh my gosh, this is what I think about. All people are like this. All businesses like this. All men are like this. All women like this. When we start making these generalizations and we don't like the default stories, that is a good assessment, a good litmus test that, oh, we got some stuff to work on still. And that's where I come in as a mindset specialist to help you start shifting those perspectives, taking a look at those stories so that when you set your goals and your visions and all these incredible things you want to do in your business and in your personal life, they are on solid foundation. All right. So with that said, let me get into it because we're just gonna jam for a little bit during this my lunchtime actually. So you're with me while I have my little break before my next coaching call. But what I want to give you are a couple of key takeaways from what I noticed in this year's mid-year virtual retreat. As I mentioned again, I do this mid-year retreat for my private clients and my members, my coaching community members, because they're all building businesses. They've all got a lot of things going on in their family life or their personal life. They have these deep desires, these big visions for what can be, and life hits, right? The economy changes, the business changes. I coach a lot of people in real estate, and with all of the NAR changes this year, a lot of changes in consumer behavior when it comes to how they treat realtors, how much they want to buy, low inventory. Like it's been a really interesting season for realtors or people in the real estate industry. So that's been unique on my end as a coach to see that for their business. But again, my goal is to support you because one of my favorite quotes that I give every single CEO or business owner that I work with comes from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it's this: the health of any good and strong organization is simply the over lengthened shadow of one man or one woman. The health of an organization is simply an over lengthened shadow of one man or one woman. Now, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but the gist is essentially that your business, whatever it is that you are building, your brand, is simply an extension of you. So if you're not liking the direction that it's going, if you are feeling that things need to change, that's fantastic. We can do some strategic things for the business, but also at the end of the day, it still boils down to you. What is it about you? What is it that's going on in your head and your heart that might be blocking the opportunities and the blessings that might be getting in the way of the progress and the growth of the business? And those are the conversations that I like to have. So at this mid-year junction, this retreat is 2 days fully focused. We go from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. All of it is on Zoom. For some of you, that sounds terrible because it's like, I don't want to be on Zoom for more than an hour. But I will tell you, one of the cool pieces of feedback that I always get on these retreats is they go by way fast. Reason being is I have them do so many different reflections and exercises. They themselves are shocked at how quickly we've gotten to the lunch or the midway point. And so these 2 days of full just retreat, they're not working in between. They got babysitters for the kids. And we know we're coming into this retreat with some intentions, with some challenges, with some big reflections. They do a lot of pre-work where I'm asking questions like, what were your biggest accomplishments this year? What were you most proud of having created in your business or in your personal life? What were your biggest challenges? What were your biggest challenges this year? What were some things that really hit you hard from left field that you didn't expect? What were some of the lessons that you felt you learned about yourself, about life, about leadership, about love this year? So, we don't take it lightly. This is not just like, oh, how was the first half of the year for you? Like that's a general question, but the point of these retreats is to dig deep. Okay. So if you, and I'm going to highly recommend this, are looking at what do I want to do for the rest of 2024? How am I going to stay focused? How am I going to stay consistent? What are the things that I want to be focused on in my business and in my personal life? This is a good time to just set aside 2 days. If you can't do 2 days, do please at least one, where it's just you, a bunch of blank pieces of paper and a pen. Literally can be that simple. But one of the things I do recommend is that you go to a new environment. So even though we were on Zoom, I encouraged everybody who was attending the retreat to go to a co-working space, go to a park, go to an Airbnb, maybe even a local hotel. It doesn't have to be expensive or far, but we do want to go into a new environment. And reason being is that when we are in new environments, we tend to think differently because we're more aware of being in that new environment. This is why people love traveling, especially if you travel to a new place. You know how when you go to a new country and if you're unfamiliar with their currency, you're looking at their money like, how much is this? What is this? But here, especially if you're watching from the United States, we look at our dollar bills. You probably look at it in less than a half a second. You're like, oh, that's a one, that's a five, that's 20, that's 100. You look at it quickly because you're so familiar with it. So you're not as present. Versus when you're in a new setting, when you're unfamiliar with something, you are hyper present. You are very focused. And so that's the point of getting into a new environment is we want to fire those neurons that are hyper present, hyper focused, because I'm not in my habitual environment. Okay. So that's sort of rule number one, schedule the time, whether it's a day or 2 days, ideally for you. Rule number two, I would say, is try to go to a new environment. Again, not expensive or far. Go down the street to your favorite coffee shop, put on some noise canceling earbuds. But the main thing is you can focus and you can concentrate. A really cool example is one of my clients, they've got 2 young kids, and they went to, I think it was like their cousin or their good friend's apartment complex, asked the favor if their family member could watch the kids for a couple of hours, and then on the bottom floor, the ground floor of their apartment complex, they had a co-working space. And so my clients, they were a couple, were able to rent that co-working space for the day. They knew their kids were upstairs with their family members getting babysat and all safe and good, but they as a couple could really focus on their goals, reflecting their business. 2 days fully together in a co-working space that was unfamiliar to them, right? So if a busy couple who runs multiple businesses and has 2 young toddlers can do it, you can do it. Okay. So making that time again, 1, 2 days, get into a new environment. And then 3, in our case, because I'm their coach, they're in our coaching community, I facilitate. I set the tone. I've got the curriculum. They just need to be coming ready to reflect. So as I mentioned, they did some pre-work. So there are some questions that I ask. If you'd actually like to get some of that pre-work questions, I'm happy to send it to you for free. If you're watching this on YouTube, you should be able to see this a little clearer. But right there on the screen, you'll see an email address. It should be coaching@theultimatelife.com. Email that, and with the subject line mid-year retreat. If you send us that email with the subject line mid-year retreat, I will send you those pre-work questions so you could at least see what it's like to start reflecting. Okay, again, I say this is pre-work because it's not the actual retreat questions, but it gets your mind thinking in the right direction. Okay, so again, there's an email address at the bottom of the screen. Go to coaching@theultimatelife.com. Email me there, subject line mid-year retreat, and I'll send you the PDF of all of the pre-work questions that everyone gets as well. Okay, so you can actually start your own mid-year retreat. Then once you've got your date set, you got your place booked, like I said, the tools you really need are a bunch of pieces of paper or a notebook, a fresh notebook ideally, a pen, that's it, and then a ton of water. So I say stay hydrated. You typically don't want to eat heavy foods during your mid-year retreat. Reason being is you don't want your body like bogged down by trying to digest a bunch of fried foods that make you sleepy and you're like, oh, now I'm too lazy to reflect. But sometimes the reflections can be very emotional, especially with some of the questions that I went through. We were digging into some deep foundational pieces on identity, who you are, what you believe, why you're doing what you're doing. And in fact, there was an exercise that I did. It's one of my favorites. It's an exercise that I've done in all of my self retreats. And I remember the first time I did it, I was blown away. And the point of this exercise, before I tell you what it is to actually get the true vision that you have for your life. And when I say the true vision, a lot of people are like, oh, you got to have a vision. You got to have a vision. And I think that's accurate. You do. There's a scripture that says, without a vision, the people will perish. And so as a leader, we don't want our people to die. We want them to have a direction. You're the captain of the ship. You're steering it. You better have a vision of where we're going. But to be fair, sometimes that gets clouded. You don't know where you're going. That's one of the biggest frustrations I get when I work with a new client or we get a new member. I know I'm supposed to do something, but I don't even know in what direction anymore. It's so overwhelming. So they're kind of a captain of a ship, but they don't know where land is. So this is where we start. Let's get a vision again, a very, very clear ultimate destination for you. And the best way to figure out what is the most important to you, okay? Not to anybody else, not to even your kids or your mentors or your coaches. Like, you're not there to impress me. You're not there to impress your mentor. What do you want for your life? What do you want for your business? What do you clearly want in your financial situation and in your health? And a good way to get that vision is to start at the end. What do I mean start at the end? Well, we do something called the self eulogy. It's a eulogy exercise where we start at the end of your life and we literally have you write the eulogy of those who you would want to speak at your funeral. Oh, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I'm out, Coach K. No, thank you. I don't ever want to go to one of your retreats. I totally get it. It is an intense exercise. But I tell you, there is nothing more impactful, more powerful when you put yourself in the place of that imagination that you are at the end of your life. You're a little angel, flapping over the celebration of life, people honoring you, and you are hearing the words spoken by the people you love most of how they saw you in life. You will be shocked at some of the things that you're going to write. Like when we were reflecting back, so I had them go do the exercise, I guided them through it, we came back into the room, we all discussed it, and the patterns that start to come out from that. Somebody would be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know why I had this person speak at my funeral, but obviously they're really important to me. Another person talked about certain things in their future that they saw, and they were shocked at that because it just feels like such an impossibility. But those things don't usually rise to the surface until we go beneath the surface. And that's why these mid-year reflections, you ain't got to do this every day because that would be emotionally draining, right? But the reason I guide you entrepreneurs through this is because when you can operate in your day-to-day with that level of conviction, with that level of purpose, and most importantly, with that level of clarity for why you're doing what you're doing, not just like surface stuff like, oh, yeah, I do it for my family or I do it for the community. I mean, you get to the deep root story of why I feel God has put me on this earth. This is my God-given purpose. I am all out for this. When you can operate from that depth of fire, then the consistency of implementing, getting it done, going through the hard times, pushing through has so much more fuel behind it. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing is they just don't have that fire, that fuel anymore. Maybe at one point they did, and it was to survive. But the reason we do these reflections is because, okay, now what is the fuel? What is the fire? So you can get rid and burn away all the distractions. So that was a really key piece was talking about that. That was one of the big exercises. And other than going through the deep foundational pieces, once we get to your mindset, your mental habits and patterns and thinking and rewriting, so I call it reinforcing the foundations, is we rewrite those stories. Maybe we got to stop practicing the I'm not good enough, I need external validation story. Even though you shouldn't, you still practice it. And so what is the even better story? And we start reconditioning those belief systems. We literally write them down. We've got invitations, we've got challenges. So that's what they were doing. And then day 2. So once we've reinforced the foundation, I call day 2 build day. So build day, and we're using sort of the analogy of remodeling or renovating a house here. Build day is now when we start putting in, okay, what's the vision for the new house? What's the blueprint that's going to get us there? What's the budget look like, right? In order for us to do these things. And we got to get real. We do talk about money. We talk about cash flow. We talk about all these different things. And then finally, of course, who is your team? So I call it the next level success squad. We build a Rolodex. We build a contact list throughout the year of the key people in each area of life that you are going to speed dial, that you're going to call, that you're going to work with. Because it's just like when you are building a house. Even if you have general knowledge of the things to do, you want to work with a specialist in electricity, aka an electrician, to work on your electricity, right? You don't want the roofing guy to come in and work on electricity. Not that the roofing guy can't do it, but it's better when that's the specialist in it. Same thing, I want to work with the flooring person because that's what they're good at. I want to work with the interior designer because that's what she's gifted at. I want to work with the GC because that's what she's been doing for 20 years, is she knows how to handle, project manage, and do all these things. But when I start cheaping out and I hire one person to try to do all things, and I get really upset when all these things weren't done quite well, it's because I didn't know who had what specialty. And so that's what we call the team, right? We build your next level success squad and we figure out, okay, in each area of life, and I often like to use Zig Ziglar's 8 areas in the wheel of life, is give me the name, give me the person. Who is the mentor when it comes to your business? Like they exemplify it. You can contact them. They're going to help you. They're a coach, they're a guide, they're a consultant, whoever, but they are an expert at that thing. Then when it comes to your married life or your family life, who is the LMFT or the marriage and family therapist that you work with? They're a specialist in that, or a mentor couple that you really respect and admire, and they exemplify where you and your spouse want to go, right? Having those names written down, that's like your build team for the project. And so that immense amount of clarity, this is what I'm talking about. I don't know if y'all got my email or not. Again, if you're not on the email list, just email coaching@theultimatelife.com. Say, coach, put me on the list so you could get notified of these things. But I put there that in order for you to absolutely crush it for the second half of the year, and you've got plenty of time, you've got 6 months, but you also don't have a lot of time because you only got 6 months. It's going to be two things: clarity and consistency. Clarity and consistency. And there's nothing that wrecks consistency more than a lack of clarity. Meaning, again, if you do not have the clarity, you don't know where you're going, why you're doing what you do. And I'll add another layer to this because this was part of the retreat, is if you also don't have conviction about that clarity. So what do I mean by conviction? That emotional energy, that passion, that fire for why you're doing what you're doing. And by the way, that's for all things. And you don't have to be the super extroverted, very emotional personality to be passionate or fire-filled. Some of my most passionate clients are introverted, but they could feel it in their soul. That's it. That's it, Coach K. That's what I'm doing for my health. That's what I'm doing for my finances. That's what I'm doing for my family. That's what I'm doing for my business. I'm telling you, when you get to that point, and it takes work to dig there for some folks, but when you get to that point of clarity and conviction, the consistency comes easier because then you'll push through anything. The reason we're often not consistent, and I'm preaching to the choir here, meaning I do this myself. The reason I'm not consistent or that other people aren't consistent is we don't have the clarity and conviction. And it just takes time. It takes work. And it takes sometimes a specialist to come in and help you dig out of your own head the silly stories that no longer serve you. Right? So that's what I'm saying. These mid-year retreats, reflections are so vital. You need to do it. If you haven't done this before, or if you're considering doing it for the first time, you can Google, how to do a retreat, reflection questions, all of that. I am actually, and it was inspired from this retreat, but I'm putting together a whole guide for you on how to run your own 2-day mid-year retreat, full on with what to do, what to bring, questions to ask. So if you're doing this for the first time or you're feeling a little lost, like I don't even know where to begin, Coach K, be on the lookout for that. So that's going to be launching before the end of July. If you want to be on the pre-order, again, just email coaching@theultimatelife.com. Just put me on the list and I will send you the minute that guide comes out. But I can't emphasize enough how critical it is for you to be in deep reflection so you have the power to just absolutely smash those goals, accomplish what you want to accomplish, not just financially, not just in business, but for your own fulfillment and joy so you can show up better for your family, so you can show up better for your God-given purpose, whatever that is for you. But it takes stillness to do that. It takes intentional scheduled time for reflection and retreat. So I hope at least the idea of it is appealing to you. And if you're an avid retreater, if you're an avid reflection person, please type in the chat, some of the questions or the things that you do to help you. But let me just give you the 2 questions that came through from this retreat that has been a repeated pattern for all of our members and clients. I always do this thing called #THH at the end. #THH means that hit home. So what hit home for you? What was valuable to you from this session? And one of the things I often do during these retreats or these masterminds is I'll have a guest speaker come in. And this year I had one of my private clients who, he's just an incredible story of redemption, bankruptcy, humble, humility, starting from nothing, building something that is in $100 million in valuation current as of today. He's just an incredible person. He's a father, he's a husband, he's a business owner, but his story was not always that way. He was on the brink of death multiple times. And so he came in and he spoke, told us a story, gave us sort of lessons learned from his 30 plus years in business and in life. And when I asked everybody what was valuable for you from his talk today, there were 2 questions that he mentioned that has been a game changer for him in business, particularly. So he was talking about as they do a cap raise, so they're raising funds for the company right now. 2 questions that they now ask all the big check writers, 2 questions that they ask all the big money makers. But we found that this is so applicable in life as well. So the 2 questions, and you're welcome to write it down if it's helpful for you. But the first one is when we're presenting something to someone, or when we're getting feedback, or even if you're a salesperson and you're doing a deal. The first question he asks is, what about this deal gives you pause? What about this deal gives you pause? So meaning, what about this are you not completely bought into? Right? Because so for somebody, you're trying to convince them of something, or you're trying to help them, and you can see hesitation. And instead of being like, well, why don't you want to buy? Or why are you not interested? And this, by the way, could even be with your personal life, and you're talking to your spouse and they're not in alignment with you on something. Why not? Oh, you don't trust me? And we automatically sometimes jump to these sort of personalized assumptions. But instead, coming from a place of curiosity, what about this gives you pause? Meaning you're not completely convinced yet. And the feedback from that, what you prompt other people to start answering, is fascinating. Because even if they don't move forward with the deal, the feedback you got back from it in order to prepare you and better the presentation the next time, invaluable, right? So again, question number 1 is, what about this deal gives you pause? And the second one, as simple as it sounds, also really powerful. Great. So what would this need to look like in order for you to say yes? What would this need to look like in order for you to say yes? So again, even if they don't pull through or decide, you know what, nah, I don't want to buy from you, or I don't want to write the check, or whatever the case may be, I don't want to do this thing. The question and the feedback that you're getting should help you reiterate, improve upon, shift for the next time. And like I said, I know this isn't a business setting, but you could use this in your personal life as well. So when you are having a disagreement or you're not sure, well, what would this need to look like in order for you to say yes? Because here's what you're doing now. You're positioning yourself as a leader in that situation that is going for the win-win. I'm not trying to prove myself right and you wrong. I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other, but I'm genuinely curious. What would it need to look like for you to say yes? And then you learn about the desires of the other person. What's actually important to them, maybe even some of their fears or hesitancies. And when you are coming from a place of curiosity versus criticism, you open up a whole new world of opportunities for yourself, for that relationship, for knowledge and wisdom, right? So even as you go into your own retreat, that might be some good questions to ask yourself. What about this particular business venture gives me pause? Why do I hesitate? And then listing all of your fears, listing all of your concerns. And then asking yourself, what would it need to look like then in order for me to say yes, to go all in, to be consistent every single day? And then listing all of those desires out. So I know we're kind of getting close to the 30-minute mark here, but I just wanted to at least give you those 2 prompts to think about, because those were, recurring #THH in the group from the past weekend. Again, shout out to my client for his great talk on that. But I think the reason it kept coming up is because those 2 questions go beyond business dealings. They go beyond cap raises. And it's good for you to reflect as well and remember, massive clarity, because that will create conviction. And those 2 in combination will help with consistency moving forward into the remainder of this year. So that's it for your little lunchtime live here, or whenever you're watching this recording. I hope it's been valuable for you. But if I could just, again, leave you with anything today, it is the power of taking some time to reflect and pause. Remember, you don't learn from experience. You know how people say that a lot? Like, oh, you're going to learn from experience. No. And how you don't learn from experience is because people do the same thing over and over and over again. And you wonder, are they just not smart? Have they not learned? And it's because even in educational theory, the key that's missing is reflection. So how it's actually phrased is this: you don't learn from experience, you learn from reflecting on experience. And taking the time for intentional reflection is going to be your competitive edge to everyone and everything that distracts you, that gets in your way, even your own thought patterns that start to sabotage your own success. So, this year, in fact, in the next 15 days, if you can, 30 max, right? We're right at this mid year point. If you're watching this close to when I did the live, please, please, please schedule time for your mid year retreat, mid year reflection. And if you need some guidance on it, email me here. I will be happy to let you know once that guide gets launched and I'll send it to you. But take time to do the deep work, take time to do the deep reflection and get your next level success squad, meaning the Rolodex of the experts, the mentors, the people who specialize in what you're trying to get better at. Begin working with them because you do not do this alone. You don't renovate, you don't build this house without having the experts on your construction team to build this incredible vision of your life out. It's so much better with community. I cannot emphasize that enough. Entrepreneurship in and of itself is already a lonely road. Leadership can be a lonely road. So part of the initiative you're going to have to take is building very strong, wise counsel around you and then also very supportive community into your schedule. Okay. And if you ever need help with that, again, reach out to me, reach out to my team. Happy to point you in the right direction. But take your mid year retreat. All right. And if you need more guidance, reach out to me. All right, my friend. Happy halfway through 2024. You're amazing. And I appreciate you. As always, y'all. Keep leading from love. Peace.